All right, let's dive into something pretty wild happening in the world of high finance. We're talking about a place that used to be all about profit and now suddenly is obsessed with purpose.
For the longest time, venture capital was a pretty simple game. High risk, high reward. That was it. But now, all of a sudden, the language of profit is getting mixed up with the language of purpose. So what's really going on here? Let's find out.
So to really get this, we first have to understand the world these investors are coming from.
Okay, so think about it like this. VCs would place these huge bets on disruptive startups, right? And they were just hoping for that one massive home run, the one exit big enough to pay for all the failures and then some. The goal was never long-term stability. It was all about getting to that next funding round and eventually cashing out big.
But now, something is definitely changing. And believe me, this isn't just some PR stunt. There's a fundamental shift happening, driven by this idea of the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profits. So what's causing it? Well, to find our first big clue, we just have to do one thing: follow the money.
To figure out why VCs are changing their tune, you have to look at who's actually giving them all that money to play with in the first place. These are the big players, the limited partners, or LPs. And wow, when you see who's writing the checks, the whole power dynamic just snaps into focus. The huge majority of the cash comes from institutional investors. We're talking pension funds and these giant government-backed sovereign wealth funds. And here's the kicker: they're not just silent partners anymore. They're starting to make some very specific demands. And listen to this quote from a VC manager. It pretty much says it all. Their main LP, the one with the most money in their fund, is a German state-owned bank. And when a government-backed investor starts telling you to focus on ESG, that's environmental, social, and government stuff, you definitely listen. And here's the thing: each of these big money players has a totally different reason for pushing this. The sovereign wealth funds, they're basically carrying out government policy. The institutional investors, they're getting squeezed by their own regulators. And for the super wealthy families, well, their motivation is often a whole lot more personal. This quote really points to a huge generational shift, right? The younger kids, the heirs, are taking over, and they're demanding that their family's money does more than just grow. They want it to actually do some good in the world. So that pressure from investors, that's driver number one. But it's getting supercharged by driver number two, a brand new, powerful rulebook. So it's not just about what investors want anymore. Now it's about the rules. And there's a really big one coming out of the European Union that's changing the game.
It's this thing called SFDR, and you can basically think of it as a mandatory nutrition label for investment funds. It was created to fight greenwashing, when companies make these bogus claims about how environmentally friendly they are. It forces funds to come clean about how green they actually are.
So here's the key to how it works. SFDR sorts funds into three buckets. You've got your Article 6 funds, which make zero sustainability claims. Then you have Article 8 funds, which promote environmental or social goals. But the real heavy hitters are the Article 9 funds, the darkest green of them all, where sustainable investment is their entire reason for being. For the very first time, there's a clear, regulated spectrum of green.
But rolling out this kind of transparency, it's not easy. In fact, it's a huge mess. As this insider quote makes pretty clear, the only people happy about how complicated these new rules are the consultants and lawyers getting paid to figure it all out. So we've got pressure from investors and pressure from regulators, and that leads us to our third and maybe the most powerful driver of all, a green gold rush. Because this whole story isn't just about dodging risk or following rules. For a lot of these VCs, this is about jumping on what might be the single biggest economic opportunity of our lifetime. I mean, listen to this powerful statement from one VC. This completely reframes the whole climate crisis. It's not just a problem to be solved. It's a massive history-making economic shift to invest in. And believe me, they're not just looking for small wins here. A lot of VCs are seeing this as the next great technological revolution, on the same scale as the birth of the internet. They're convinced the next Google, the next Amazon, is going to be a company that solves a major piece of the climate puzzle. And this right here is the new mantra. The old way of thinking was that you had to choose. You could either make a profit or you could have a purpose. The new belief? In this century, you can't have one without the other. Huge impact and a huge valuation are becoming two sides of the very same coin. So we have pressure, we have regulation, and we have profit. But that's still not the whole story. There's one last piece to this puzzle, and honestly, it's the most surprising and the most human of all.
So after you strip away all the financial jargon and legal documents, what's really driving these people when the doors are closed and the spreadsheets are put away?
And then you hear this. It turns out, in interview after interview with the general partners, the people actually running these funds, the same answer kept popping up. Beyond all the talk about returns and risk, a lot of these investors are just parents, and they're thinking about the world they're going to leave behind for their own kids.
So when you ask why are VCs going green, it turns out it's this perfect storm. It's the pressure they're getting from their own investors. It's the new rules forcing them to be transparent. And yeah, it's absolutely about the chase for the next billion-dollar unicorn. But underneath all of that, it also comes down to a really basic human desire to build a better future.
And that really leaves us with one big question to chew on. As these three powerful forces, pressure, profit, and purpose, all crash into each other, which one is ultimately going to be the one that shapes where the money flows, and with it, the future of our planet?